wanted to welcome you to my podcast.
My name is Stormy Quinn.
Yes.
I'm over here in Canada at this given time. And I did not set out to write a book, to be honest. This was not my intended life journey, but it just so happened that as I went along this journey, I felt compelled to go down this path and write this book for everyone. So that's a little bit in a nutshell of how we got to the book. But leading to the book, I'm very much a proponent for women's health and supplementation for women and just trying to get information out there, especially during this chaotic phase of a woman's life where everything that we found to work previously just seems to completely stopped working. Where do you start and pick up those pieces and where do you go from there? And that's, I think, my journey now. This is my calling of trying to sort that out and try to help women do that for themselves.
Okay. So tell us before you wrote this book, her book is called The Menopause Decoder, which we'll talk about. What were you doing? What were you up to?
Yeah. So I have a company called Venus Vitality.
Okay.
Ultimately, our motivation is trying to solve those problems in which women were otherwise told it's just part of being a woman. With the perimenopause, the menopause, PMS cramps, PCOS, endometriosis. The other thing that we have brought to the market is these little patches that they're adhesive patches. And so you just place it on your abdomen, your lower back during those times of the month where you just are really uncomfortable, but life goes on. You have responsibilities. So we're just in that phase of trying to bring things to life that's going to just help women through every stage of life. So prior to writing the book, that's where I found myself keeping busy most of the time and trying to come up with these ideas and solutions and just seeing problem areas for women and trying to offer some kind of help.
So you were already in the process of helping women with the various supplements that you produce. So tell us about your journey of perimenopause and what your experience has been and what led you to write the book that came out in May, I believe. Yes?
Yeah, it was launched in May, finally got it off the ground. But ultimately, what led to the book was that I was just trying to figure it out myself. What the heck was happening to my body? I went from one day feeling incredibly focused and sharp and on the ball and strong to incredibly exhausted and very short with my friends, my family, and just feeling bloated for no reason. It was just you take a look at everything to see if there was any anomalies, things have changed, and I didn't change anything. But it was evident that there was something in me that just felt off. I'm sure any woman who's going through this, there's something you just know something is not right. And the worst part about it all is that nobody could give me a straight answer as to what was going on. My labs were coming back normal, all my blood tests. Almost felt like I was getting dismissed. And along this path, just felt like I was losing my grip on reality because it was just hitting me so hard. And that's what resulted in the Menopause Decoder, because I just didn't think the resources were out there. And I didn't want other women to have to try to figure it out, claw their way through this confusion that I was experiencing. And from the people I've spoken to since the release, so many people can resonate with the story, feeling the same way. It's just almost an unspoken phase of a woman's life. To go 36, 38 years in your life, never hearing about it.
Yeah. And do you mind asking me how long ago this was that you started experiencing it, how old you were?
Yeah. So I'm 42 right now, and I would probably say if I look back, it was probably 38 or so. And that to me was shocking.
Yeah.
It was shocking.
Yeah.
Because menopause, you talk about that to anybody, and you're like, it's a woman in her 50s, has a few hot flashes maybe. But truly, it happens through the research I did at the earliest mid-30s. You can start feeling this different way of life that changes everything as you knew it.
Yeah. No, it's actually, and it's so difficult to diagnose because you're often, and especially if you're working and you have a family and you're taking care of other things. So just feeling tired could be from all of that. And not so much hot flashes and night sweats, but feeling irritable and feeling cranky and not being able to sleep with life stressors. I often
Yeah.
find that you have to really, with my patients at least, I have to really know them well and say, it sounds like this is different from what we've talked about before, that this may be perimenopause. I can share with you, when I'm currently 53, but when I was in my late 30s, that's when, and I didn't even realize it, that I started experiencing perimenopause. And I think I'm atypical in that that stretch has lasted even up until now, where menopause
Oh, goodness.
still lasts. I know. When I tell some of my patients, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to be like, it has its good things and it has its bad things. But yeah, some of the things that I've been through, gosh, even as a doctor, it took me a lot of my own time and seeing various doctors to figure out what the remedy should be. So no one person, no one woman is the same thing. So for me, out of nowhere, despite the same things I was eating, my same workout routine,
You got it.
I was like, boom, 10 pounds, like out of nowhere. And I was like, at that time, I had a totally different lifestyle, living the Manhattan life. And I was working out in the morning, eating my protein shakes, all sorts of stuff. And out of nowhere, 10 pounds. And I was like, okay, this is not usual for me. And I had a very difficult time losing weight once I put it on. So that was for me. And I had no understanding that's what was going on. Even as a doctor, it took me a long time to reflect back on that and say, you know what? I think that's what was happening to my body. And then, yeah, so it looks different for everyone. And it's difficult to tease apart at times. What inspired you to write the book?
I think it all came down to almost necessity. There was a few things happening, like everything you described. I can echo just the same, just not really knowing, but also knowing there was something wrong with you, but not being able to put your finger on it was one thing. And that extra layer of exhaustion you're feeling, and that compounds into strain on your just well-being. And it also cascades into those relationships.
Yeah.
Your husband, your significant other, your friends, your children, like you name it. But the reality is, like, you just come to a breaking point and it all just floods out. And it's just not, it wasn't, I think, reasonable for me to expect my significant other to know how to handle me, because things have changed so drastically at that point. And the conversations were very careful, I'll say, because you just didn't know what the trigger was for the day. And I noticed that there was just becoming such a disconnect with my husband, who I've known forever and a day. And I didn't feel like the same person, and he wasn't sure how to talk to me at this point. And I think all of this kind of coming to a headway made me realize, if another person found themselves in this position, what would they do? What resources are out there? And I just didn't see it. I just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And so, absent of having anything to lean on myself, I thought, but if it helps one person navigate this journey, to me, that's a victory. So just to put it out there and hopefully allow that to help somebody else. That's the motivation behind it.
Yeah. Like I said, as a patient, I could have done better and tried to approach other doctors as a patient, not as a doctor, to have those discussions. But I think I was just so wrapped up in the confusion of what was going on with myself. Like I was still menstruating regularly, and I wasn't having any other, as far as I could tell, any other issues going on. So for me, I just focused on the weight, but I think there were other things, I just didn't realize it at the time.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I think just everything you've been saying about the symptoms, not really being able to identify, like, it's so different for every woman. You cannot say, if you have this, and this, you are in perimenopause. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah. What I am liking is that I think there are doctors and also people who are out there, Tamsin Fadal and Mary Claire Haver and a whole bunch of other women who are coming out and saying we should be using vaginal estrogen regardless of how old you are, meaning obviously not when you're 30, but approaching that stage, that should be used regularly because that can really help with the thinning of the vaginal area as well as preventing other things like incontinence and all sorts of stuff from happening. So I think those conversations are happening more, and there's been much more research regarding at least topical estrogen. But obviously, I think one of the things that we're not talking about or haven't so yet is that there, up until now, that there's been a lack of research that really focuses on this stuff. And hopefully in the years to come, we'll catch up on all of that. So the title of your book, it's brilliant, right? How did you decide to name it The Menopause Decoder?
So ultimately, I just wanted to cut through the noise. Like one thing you probably, if you read the book, you understand about me. I try to make it very raw. To the point, I think every woman comes to this point in their life where we cut out the nonsense. There's just no time or room for that.
Yeah.
So it really means like taking all this overwhelming, conflicting information and just translating it into something that actually makes sense. So it's not like high-level textbook. There's some descriptions of understanding what's happening to your body, but it's on a level of everyday conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the essence of the book, is just to make sense, real talk about what's going on. So you're decoding it for sure.
Does your book touch on how family members, or specifically significant others, can navigate around this time and help the person who's going through menopause or perimenopause?
Oh, most definitely. It took the approach that this is written for the significant other in your life.
Okay.
This is truly something every significant other needs in their tool belt, because this is going to help translate what is going on so you can better understand. Like with knowledge comes power, of course, but also give them the position if they want to step up, they want to help, they just don't know how. So this allows them to do so by asking the right questions and coming at the issue from the right perspective. We don't need somebody to come in and try to fix us or tell us that, oh, you're just having a bad day, you're just stressed out. It's more than that. At this stage, it's more than that.
Yeah.
So it's opening up the dialogue to have those heart-to-heart conversations of really what's going on.
I often find, though, that you need a girlfriend.
To understand. Yeah.
A girlfriend in that same kind of age group. They don't have to be entirely in the same age that you are, but you often need a girlfriend who's going through it, who understands, right? As great as they are, right? They haven't been through men, that is, the trials and tribulations that we go through. Their puberty is different than our puberty. And so I'm not saying that they don't have hurdles to get through. But this stage of life, right? It's a very tricky one. But as you were saying, that it's important, right, for them to be able to at least maybe not say the wrong thing.
Turn very
Yeah. Thinking back on sitcoms and jokes and things that I've seen and read and heard about women in menopause. What do you think? What are the things that do you think that leave women feeling unheard or mocked or gaslit? What do you think? What would you be able to share with us?
Ultimately, the premise that this is just a normal part of aging and get over it. That to me, I think, is the most damaging for any woman. And because it really doesn't give them any compass to work. Like there's no framework to work with. Just sucking it up and trying to carry on normally is so damning, I would say. So menopause in itself, in fact, we know it's normal, but struggling through it really doesn't have to be. And that, I think, needs to be the clear message. Women out there who are feeling like they're getting gaslit, you don't have to deal with this. You just may have to find that right person who's willing to talk to you and help you help yourself.
Yeah.
That in itself, like just people I've spoken to, seems to be a struggle, but don't give up. You deserve to get the help you need, because this is not an easy stage of life. And it has nothing to do with being lazy or unmotivated. It's just, this is nature.
Yeah. So
So
ultimately, where did you go to get the help that you needed? And was it a trial? Did you have to do many iterations before you found the right person or people?
I'm super, super fortunate that my doctor is one that just is very open-minded. And I recognize that not everybody has that privilege. I truly think it is a privilege because it can be completely frank and say what I think I need. He'll test me and he'll see me in my way. So absent of that, though, I think it's just a matter of keep going. You might get turned down and you need to keep going to find a solution because there's no way you should have to struggle, and whatever that means to anybody, just keep going and find that person who's willing to listen to you.
So, how did you help structure the chapters in your book? How did you navigate what to write about? And what chapter was the most meaningful for you?
Everything I wrote was really just based off of a truck ton of reflection and experience and research. And that's from my observation, anyways, at the time of writing it. I felt this was the most meaningful way to approach it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, like, for me, the hardest part was, without a doubt, the intimacy part. There's so much shame tied to having a low libido, the dryness, this being disconnected from your partner, and the resultant of your relationship struggling. I think, to be honest about that, was putting a lot out there, because speaking from experience, because I know I'm not the only one who's experiencing this. And this is not something that we asked for. It's just something we have to deal with. If other women can't speak on the topic, I thought it was appropriate that I did. And I just want to make sure somebody was speaking on their behalf.
Yeah, I think there's so much shame and secrecy. I think that's changing a bit. I think there's obviously much more happening and it's being spoken about in media, and there are more podcasts where women are coming out and talking about themselves and their experiences. You talk about mindset shifts, movement and nutrition. How do these things help, and why are they so important for women who are in midlife?
Incredibly important to what you were saying earlier, right? You put on 10 pounds out of nowhere. Like, why does that happen?
Yeah.
It's the mind shift is realizing that everything up until that point is basically invalid. And now you work this whole entire time in your life to figure out what works for your body, and then it changes.
It changes, right?
Like, big time. You maybe were somebody who did a lot of cardio in your life because we were ingrained to believe that's how you burn off the calories out mentality.
Yep.
So the one thing that is so important, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is the protein. Protein. You need that every single meal. And if you're not weight training, and I'm not talking about getting bulked up, you're simply just wanting to exercise those muscles, they know that you still need them.
Yeah.
And so they don't deteriorate with all the changing of your hormones and stuff like that. So that is huge. Weight training, the protein intake, taking walks, as basic as that sound. Walking, what I read anyway, it resets the nervous system. Okay. Back your cycle. Yeah, it's going to be irregular all over the place. Something that was pretty consistent up until this point. Now you're trying to figure out the highs and lows and how you react during those times to put you in power of what's going on.
Why do you think that women obviously I was one of them, even though I'm a doctor. Why do you think, what has led to women feeling so confused? Where my patients come in for physicals, I try to be proactive and say, okay, these are the things to watch out for. But why do you think women feel so confused around this stage of life?
Up until recently, like you said, with people starting to speak out about it.
Yeah.
The education just wasn't there. this term perimenopause was not in my vocabulary. It just was unknown. And it's a funny thing. And I think it's similar to pregnancy. And women have babies and it's a painful experience, but then you're happy when you get pregnant a second time and you forget about that whole painful experience. And I think similarly, you speak to other women in your life, your aunts, your mother, your grandmother, and you ask them about menopause. They're like, yeah, it's a breeze. Like, was it really?
No, I don't think so.
No, that's not what my grandfather is saying or my uncle. So I think there's a gap there in maybe the transfer of knowledge and people feeling like they can actually talk about this. I think there was a stage in humanity where it was suggested that women were less powerful as a result of this happening to them. And once they hit that stage, their usefulness went away. And that's just so unfortunate because it's just not talked about. It's not explained. And I think this is a really great time for anybody to be going through perimenopause to finally have some resources to help them through it.
Yeah. Having gone through some of these hormonal shifts, in terms of your friends and relatives, what do you encourage? Because obviously these conversations need to happen more between friends and relatives where we can talk freely. What kind of conversations should these be like?
Yeah, I think it's just so important to share what's happening to you. Don't hold back on it. This is where I feel a great deal of relief just even in having this conversation, just to put the word out there, right? I don't think you're meant to try to take on the world yourself with the chaos that's happening inside you. Maybe one symptom you're experiencing is unusual, but somebody else you start talking to had something similar to you. And you don't know that until you have the conversations. Maybe you find out one thing works great for one woman and you adopt it. And that's not something you're going to find in a book, unfortunately. And I would love to be the first one to put that book together of the hacks to combating perimenopause. But that's what I encourage. Like when you just talk, get to understand what's going on, what they're going through, what they're struggling with, how they're overcoming it. And I think that's the biggest defense here is just to have real conversations.
Why do you think the generation preceding us, and you and I might be of two different generations, so you may be talking about my generation. Why do you think that these conversations weren't had where my mom didn't talk to me, certainly about puberty, and didn't talk to me about any of this stuff? I don't even talk to me about pregnancy either, right? So I think it was just like, don't get pregnant. Whatever you do, don't ruin your life and don't get pregnant. I was like, okay, that's great advice.
Yeah. Yes. We have similar experiences with it all. Like anything reproductive around women.
Yeah.
It's just not really talked about. Yeah. And if that wasn't puberty and pregnancy, if that wasn't, like, no wonder perimenopause was off the radar for sure. And to their defense, I would question if they even knew what it was to be able to articulate.
True. Yeah. True. Very true. Yeah.
But like right now, with all the conversations, I think we're coming to see how many one symptom that could very well mean perimenopause can also mean like 10 other things potentially. But it's not until you put all those pieces together that you can go with some certainty that it's probably perimenopause. Yeah, that makes sense.
I do think it's being talked about more, and I think women are listening more to their various podcasts or reading books, because definitely have more patients who come in who have those questions where I don't necessarily have to ask them, but they know, okay, let me just check in with Dr. Mundell and find out, is this something that I should be worried about? What should I do? What can I do during this phase? Yeah, so this is great that you're bringing all of this to the limelight. Let me ask you a question. How has it changed your relationship with your spouse? What did you learn during this journey that helped him to speak with you different and hopefully structure your relationship differently in a better way?
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I think I read a statistic like 60% of divorces happen in around the perimenopause and menopause. With that being said, he was instrumental in me bouncing things off of him. Like I am so blessed that he is an open-minded individual, and he was willing to just hear me out on a lot of this. And through those discussions, we were able to come to an understanding of what works for us and why it works for us, and how that can also be applied to other people. The approach of, you're just having a bad day. And me being able to explain how I perceive that to him. I'm just having a bad day. Yeah, you're just dismissing me. Okay. I don't need you to diagnose me, man. I need you to listen to me. Okay. So it's just being able to, he's my rock in all of this for sure. And he's stand by the crazy days and just taking all that experience and talking with our friends about it and them having their reactions is how we came to, this needs to be somewhere for somebody to use as a resource for themselves. And that's ultimately how it came about in the book and reflected in the book. I don't know if that answered your question. But
Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've realized that men are more doers and fixers. You give them a problem. Okay, let me fix this for you. But this is not something necessarily that it's more like we have to understand it and how to help ourselves. And it's never going to be a perfect process. So I don't think they necessarily know what to do with that.
Yeah, I'm musing with that because I think you're bang on. I think you nailed that right on the head. And one thing I didn't write about necessarily, because it was something we just recently instituted, was like, the first question my husband asks me now is like, where are you? Where are you today? And I'll say, 1 to 10, where I am. He's okay. I know what version of you I'm going to be working with. And I think that's now so helpful for me to communicate without so many words. Like, so where I am in that moment.
So there's a Stormy 1.0, Stormy 2.0.
You got it. That's right. I'm at a 10. Oh, do you want me to call you back?
So I think that being said, I think there are also mechanisms that we can employ when we are going through those roller coasters where you take a little time out, you take a little drive, you take a little walk, you go to your backyard and blow off whatever it is. It's nothing earth-shattering, but sometimes you need those moments. And that's where life can get complicated because women are often doing a million different things at the same time. The time to have those little moments, or they don't have the time to make those moments. So my whole point is if you can make the time, and I think we can all make the time. I'm talking about 15 minutes. So I think I'm talking to myself, really. We can all spare 15 minutes to blow off steam. So
yeah,
let's do some fun things, okay? If Menopause had a song, a soundtrack, what would one of the songs be?
Okay. This is a funny one. And the first thing that really came to mind, and this might not be your generation, is Lose Yourself by Eminem. Okay. You only got one shot at this chapter and that's it. And so just to own it and be that new version of yourself that you are going to be. That's the song that came to mind.
I might have to reach out to Eminem's whatever, not him, but to see if I can have that in the background music of the podcast.
That.
And then what was your favorite mantra from your book?
My goodness, you're not crazy. You're just changing, I would say. It could have resonated with me so much. Everybody keeps on trying to like hang on to that version of themselves they were before that moment, that little flicker went off. And you know what? Conserve your energy and put it towards those things that are going to help you decompress, those things that you enjoy in your life. Be able to take those 15 minutes, like you were saying, and just find something that just you really thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
To change it. No big deal.
It's a big deal because it's often hard, right? To gather all your strengths and figure out what's going on with you. But at the same time, this is one of the things that bind us all together. So we're not in it alone. And going back to one of the points you were saying, talking to other people, especially other women, is very important. And then women over 45, what should they start doing If let's say they're not having anything, what should they start doing?
Just accept yourself for that. Of course, you can do things to try to mitigate the effects of this stage, right? Like we said, the protein, going for walks, some weight training. There's big emphasis on getting weighted vests now. So even if you're just cleaning up the house, you're forcing your body to be in that state where you're weighing it down and exerting it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So educate yourself as much as possible, but definitely don't apologize for changing. And it's important to have that mindset of accepting it, because ultimately it's going to happen. So you just got to be grounded with the fact it is going to happen. And that's life as we know it, as long as you know what you're up against.
Yeah. So your book, where can we find the Menopause Decoder?
Oh, you can get it on Amazon. If you search up the Menopause Decoder, you can find it there, definitely. So we're offering a hard copy, soft copy. You can get an ebook, and we're just about to also launch the audio book. So if that's your thing too, it could be a very good gift for any woman who might be going through this. I think it's very valuable even if you want to get the audiobook for your husband just to listen to, just to make them that much wiser and help you through this crazy journey. Amazon, you can also get it on our website, so venusvitalitynu.com. That's also where we got our supplements, the heating pads I told you about, and the book.
Okay. Do you have any social media handles where people can follow you?
I'm just redoing my social media. Be over 40.
Oh, okay. And that's on Instagram, Facebook, or?
Yeah, you got it. All of the above. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. The only thing I'd say is going through this, as I expressed in the beginning, we are trying to help women in every kind of facet throughout life. And the next thing we are bringing also is, you said you were struggling with it. Weight, I struggle with it. And so we're offering it's called Venus Transformation. It's a protocol for women going very specific, perimenopause, menopause, who are struggling with just realizing what they were doing isn't working. So it's a guide to help them through it, meal plans, fitness routines.
Okay.
We want to be there to help you and make this journey less crazy. So that's our next endeavor.
Yeah.
Complement whatever you're doing, whether it's working with your doctor, if you go for HRT, whatever it is, but also supplementing it with your nutrition and your health, your fitness as well.
This has been great talking with you and talking about your book. I wish you much success in all you do, and have a great weekend.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Very nice to talk to you.